Let's talk about it.
Hello and welcome back to Thicc Radio, the award-winning podcast where we talk about gaining, feedism, and everything plus size. I'm a little fairy tale character, sits in a corner, sticking his thumb in a pie, gobbling up plums. James.
And a little nonsense every now and then is treasured by the wisest man, Tim.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the show. And today with us, we have the fabulous, the gorgeous, the thick and juicy. We have Sundae Addams, baby!
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being on. Honey, how are you?
I'm doing good. It's hot in the South, and that sucks, but we're fighting through it.
Ma'am, listen, I was saying just before we started the episode officially, like I have my aircon on in the back. I have a little desk operative fan down here. It's blowing covertly into like the sleeve of my singlet, so I'm getting a little coolness across the front. And I've also got the hand fan. And the reason for that is because nobody tells you when you start to gain weight, especially as a man. Boob sweat is such a thing. And like, I'm just trying to mitigate all of the faculties of my gorgeously fat body crying out in protest of this summer season. So, we're doing what we can.
Absolutely.
Tim, what is it like in Cleveland? Because I feel like you talk more about cold snaps and frost than you do like
It
hot,
is
hot
cold here,
summers.
actually. Yeah, it is cold here at the moment. Well, cool. It's only like 63 degrees today, and it's very cloudy, and it's been raining most of the day. So, yep, it's cold. All of our public pools are open. Nobody's in them.
Well, listen, Sunday, we were very excited to get the chance to chat to you today, girly. So, shall we just jump straight on into it? We're going to be plumbing and getting into a little bit of your dating history, delving a little bit. Are you ready, girly?
Already, buckle up.
Fabulous. That is, I think, the correct response to this situation. So, first port of call, at what age did you begin dating, and what were some of your earliest dating experiences like?
So I kind of started dating absurdly early. I don't know. It's like I started dating in like 12 to 13. Like I was like getting my little boyfriends in school. And my first partner that I stumbled upon happened to like a thick woman. And when I was younger, I was always under 150, like 150 pounds. I never went past that. And he treated me so nice. Like he was just so caring and supportive and friendly. Like I just kind of fell in love with the way that he treated me. And that kind of in turn made me be like, ooh, I kind of like being what he wants too. So I kind of just started not caring and eating more and not really working out, and I loved it. We broke up, and I started dating like quote unquote normal people, but I kind of felt myself missing this and having a pull to go back to it. And it just gave me a sort of confidence that I hadn't felt before until I started that relationship. So now it's like stuck in my brain.
I think for a lot of us over on the gainer side of the fence, like with our social apps and all that, like there's plenty of like there are times when you're able to, if you're lucky to date within the fetish. Most of the time you have to date outside of it. I've also dated a mix of like both in and out of the fetish. Like me, like have you come to a point where like for me, I don't think I can make it work with anybody that doesn't already have this in their bag at this point. Like I'm so deeply entrenched in it that I'm not sure I can make it work without it. Do you feel that you've also come to that point, or are you still open to the idea of like having someone who's indifferent to it at best?
So I kind of have a weird history with that. I've dated in and out, but when I've dated out, I've kind of told people like, "Hey, I sell pictures of myself, videos of myself online, um, and I am thick, and that is not going to change." And 9 times out of 10, they're like, "I'm interested, tell me more. Let's see if what this is about." And
Hmm.
actually seek it out after we've separated. So like
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't have any experience with people not being okay with it really.
Now, listen, Linda. Listen, I don't think it's a coincidence that your handle name is Sundae, spelt in the way of the delicious ice cream dessert. Because clearly, when people get the chance to sample your delicious self, they clearly go, "Oh, I could go for another one of those. I could clearly go for
You've
another
obviously
helping."
left a wake of converts. Like,
Yes, yes, I have tainted a lot of people, you could say. But the great thing is that they like I dated somebody for 4 years and I was his first girlfriend. I was his first everything. And then we split up toxically and tragically. But his girlfriend now is like 400 fucking pounds. Like
God damn.
a big goth girl. And I'm like, I planted the seed and I know I did.
Come on, that's fantastic. I mean, there's such a conversation with that, right? And if you don't mind me probing a little bit here, because you'd mentioned your dating history started from when you were quite young, a very, very early teen. How old are you now?
I am 23.
You are 23, so we're 10 years in, right? A decade of
Yes.
experience and bits. No, I always think these retrospective conversations are so fascinating because there are so many of us that experience gaining fetus desires from a young age, an age where you can't be doing things with other people because they ain't allowed. And yet the desires are there. So it's always very interesting to hear like, the little ways in which some size appreciation, some size celebration might creep in, even into some of those early experiences on either side of the fence. So good on you for being that person. Good on you for converting some bitches over to this side of the fence. Because listen, I ain't nothing like a big bitch. I'm sorry. Like one of my favorite lines on online discourse is you got to be too fitty to get this kitty. Like you got to be packing if you want me to be snacking on that dick. So I'm just saying you've got to come on now. You know what I'm saying? Like girl, I live. Girl, I live. Um, but you're a decade into dating now, and to be clear, you're in a relationship at the moment.
Yes.
Lovely. And can we inquire? Is it with a community member or not?
Yes, this is the third person from Feabie I have met and have been with. I've had maybe, let's guess, 6 or 7 partners in my life that were like serious partners, and he has been the best. Like, I messaged him on
Mm.
Feabie. He had one profile picture, a 2 sentence bio, and the profile picture was like a year old. And I was like, I don't know, he just seems so nice. And so I messaged him. He was receptive. He came over, we clicked, and it was just immediately like we had known each other forever. And the biggest elephant in the room was addressed already.
I just first of all, how many people get to say, of my dating experiences, I've had a delicious blend of community and non-community, fetish and non-fetish. You've really got a range of experiences. And, not to say the obvious, but how fabulous that your current beau is the best you've had. That's wonderful. I love knowing
Yes.
that. Because listen, I feel like sometimes when it comes to dating conversations, especially when kink is concerned, you start from the position of we're scraping the bottom of the barrel and we're learning to like lick barnacles off the bottom is what the flavor profile ends up being for a lot of people. Tim, don't you pull that face, baby. Don't tell me I'm not wrong. Don't tell me I'm wrong.
I know, but did you have to say lick barnacles?
I mean, how else would you describe the experience on Grommr, bitch?
I don't know, but I don't think I would have said licking barnacles.
All right, fine. I ain't licking barnacles. You're licking wood at the bottom. Does that make you happier?
It doesn't matter. Just licking barnacles caught me off guard. Sorry.
There we go. Licking barnacles, and we're back. Licking barnacles, Sunday. How does that make you feel?
Just as uncomfortable as Tim feels right now. That's a terrible term. Let's retire that one.
No, that's fine. We're going to stick with licking barnacles. I think that's really what's going to drive this conversation forward
Well, at
into
least he's not just
joy.
torturing me alone.
Listeners, what do you think about licking barnacles? Write into us at thiccradio@gmail.com and let us know what you think of the term. But I digress. Sometimes dating within kink feels like you are already operating from a position of loss, like there's not a lot of opportunity. And you've had several opportunities and they seem to get better every time, which I think is wonderful. I'd like to ask you here, Do you observe that for other people? Like, do you see other people like out here struggling to date successfully in the space? Or for Tim and I, is it maybe more of a case that the gainers are just having a hard time?
No, I absolutely see tons of people having trouble. I have like a small group of friends of people that I've met off of Feabie, and we like hang out once or twice a month, watch movies, go get food. Like we just hang out and talk, and it's kind of like the first safe space that they've had to really talk about this kind of stuff openly. And one of my friends, he's been having some dating woes and kind of feels like hopeless and helpless on and off of like dating apps, kink sites, anything like that. So he's definitely feeling down, but I keep telling him like please just keep trying because you are not going to win if you don't play.
Unfortunately, that
But
is like the truest adage, right? Like, you got to be in it to win it. You've got to play the game to win prize. Like, you know, it's very that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think what age group is your friend? Like, is he your age or is he a bit older or?
we all range from 23 to 26.
Okay, because I was about to say that's a very millennial kind of outlook on everything because we got a lot of Disney shit forced down our throats when we were kids, and that
Mm.
whole fairy tale bullshit thing that we were promised. So, unfortunately, when the bubble popped, a lot of us got very disillusioned very quickly.
Well, look,
That could
let
be
me
it.
ask you here. When considering you've got so many different relationship experiences to pull from, can I ask, when you think about the two different categories, right? Guys in the community versus people outside of the community, what have been some of the challenges and what have been some of the successes of like each category of potential partner?
Persistent motivation comes across differently with somebody who is born into wanting this rather than introduced to this later on. So it's easy for me in like non-fetus orientated relationships to consistently stay on top of eating extra, getting a few calories, not moving a whole lot. Like I just kind of forget that in my brain, but it's subconsciously way back in there where I'm like, God, it sucks that this isn't happening as much as I want. But like in a fetus relationship, they can be so into it where they've watched videos, messaged women, bought content, and it's all fantastical. And then they get into it and they don't really pay attention to boundaries or they go too far with it. They just kind of get wrapped up in it while kind of civilian people would more so, very much so, make sure they're not overstepping or hurting or anything like that. So that's kind of a challenge to kind of rope in a fetus to be like, hey, I can't eat 8 pizzas by myself, and that's got to be okay.
That's
But
fascinating to me because, like, I've noticed in my personal life, the kink spaces that I hang out in, and like most of the people that I know, period, are always about consent. And I've had very few run-ins with anyone in the gainer community that wasn't like immediately seeking my consent for everything, like, and so happy to see that. But on the civilian side of just regular gay world, no consent being observed whatsoever. I'm still being groped. I'm still being grabbed at. I'm still being manhandled when I go out to the bars. Like, I'm only finding the consent thing within that kinky world.
hmm,
I wonder how much of that comes down to like kink is ultimately in opposition to typical sex, right? And I think sometimes we look at it as like a queer thing. And I do think, in my personal opinion, if you are a cisgendered heterosexual person, but you're a kinkster, you're actually a queer person because you're a kinkster. Like, I do think ostensibly that's the realm you operate in. But like, so much of queerness operates in specific opposition to the concept of heterosexuality or cisgenderedness. But I think what kink operates in opposition to is like the standard operation of how the concept of sex is supposed to work. And largely, we don't critique the notion of how that is supposed to work because it is just sort of presumed biologically that people will have their way with one another, that there will be this animalistic element, and that reproduction will happen, and that it must involve penetration, and all these little facets that must take place. And inherently, for us as evolved people, like that doesn't include consent. That doesn't engage a conversation about whether I do or don't want the thing, you know? For Christ's sake, women are still having to position themselves as like, what if I don't want children? And apparently being thought of as crazy for not wanting to apparently adhere to what is the norms of biology, all that kind of nonsense. So I think because kink is in opposition to that, kink inherently obliges conversation around consent. It obliges you to really come to terms with, because of course, many of us have non-con fantasies. And for many of us, that's our through line into sex. Oh, I didn't mean to be fed. Don't feed me. I would hate this. Don't want to be fat. Oh no, I can't stop you from being too strong and fattening me. Oh, it's happening. I can't do anything. Many of us indulge that. But the reality is when there's another bitch in front of you, you've got to be able to have conversation. And you've got to be able to have it in a way that you can feel safe to express in that space. And also to return to safety. I need to know that I can look at you Sunday and go, okay, we're about to get wet and wild right now. We're going to go all the way there. And I need to know that we can do that and then come back and cuddle. I need to know that we can come back into normalcy and be the people that we need to be afterwards. Reflecting on your relationships in the past, do you feel like you've had opportunity for that, or do you feel like you've had to really fight to ensure that kind of safe passage into the heavier side of things, ironically, and to be able to come back?
I definitely started like relationships not respecting myself enough. So I didn't mind when other people didn't respect me. And
Girl,
I
talk
kind
about
of
that.
just saw like I saw attention, whether it was positive or negative, as being attention. Like somebody was finally listening to me and looking at me, and I chased that a lot. And sure, I was very happy in my early relationships, but that is not to say that it was a healthy happy. I was definitely trying to escape home life, and in a way, it was kind of something I was pushed into doing, really, but I found it to be enjoyable like on my own time. And then like as I started getting older and started respecting myself more, I started being like, hey, we're not doing this if I'm not like I need this, like I need aftercare, I need communication, I need boundaries. And then, I started getting a little bit more picky. And people who didn't want to comply with that didn't get to come into my house. So they either respected me or they didn't get to hit.
That is such a big conversation about self-respect. And again, my mentioning before, so many of us feel like when it comes to engagements, dating, or just pure sex, we feel like we're starting from a position of lack. And so there's that sense of, I'm already me who I am within a kink and fetish, within a specific space. There is not an endless number of people around me. There feels like such a small pool. And so I feel like I don't have the opportunity to figure things out. I kind of have to accept what's around me. Because if I don't, then I go without. And that's such a, I don't think that's the community's fault because like there's only so many people that are people and how can you have that conversation broadly? But I do think that piece on respecting yourself is so like fucking uh uh sorry. That takes me all the way back. That does.
So if you were in a relationship with somebody that's outside of the community, like how did they handle like your weight gain? Because I mean you've been steadily gaining over the years, right?
Yeah. I guess since I really started, like since I actually started trying to gain weight, I've gained a little over 100 pounds from my start weight.
Got it.
Um, I would say like just being upfront and honest. Like just get it out there. Don't dump it on somebody all at once, but give them time to ask questions and react and process it and like see if they feel comfortable because it's not all about what you want. So, like I was so intimidated leaving that fetus relationship and being like, I'm never going to find this again. I'm never getting that. And then my very next one, I was like, hey, I do this online. And then he was just like, let's try it out. Let's see. I think a lot of people don't understand that people who are seemingly like not kinky or vanilla, they're not always not interested.
Get like, I mean, obviously with the way that you with the way that you've been able to bring people into it, yeah. I mean, sometimes you just don't know until you expose them to it. And sometimes you scratch the surface of any vanilla person and you find a whole treasure trove hidden
Well,
under there.
well, sometimes I think we look at kink as if, oh, it must be for us because it isn't for anyone else. Like, I must be destined to be into this because if it was for everyone, then everyone would be into it. But actually, sometimes I think, like, some of us just find our way into it purely by chance. Like, we saw the correct cartoon when we were young, or we happened upon the right image on Tumblr when we weren't even looking, and all of a sudden, bam, it was right there in front of us. I think the examples that I think it was it's Pornhub. It's one of the platforms, and I don't know how they'll be able to do this in future, courtesy of lockout laws and AI and bullshit. But every year since they launched, they were doing a roundup of like what is the most popular category of porn, and topping the charts every month, the fucking time is BBW or thick and husky for men. Like it's the number one thing that people want to see doing the fucking. I think more people are into this than we know, and also that they themselves know of themselves. And I think about someone like yourself, Sunday, who you carry yourself in such a way that it really doesn't surprise me that you might unlock something in someone. Because you simply existing your fierce, fat, fabulous self is enough to make someone, anyone, look at you and go, oh,
Oh,
you know what I
that's
mean?
like the best compliment.
But again, I think that it reflects you, the person. And, sometimes when I think about, not to say who we bring onto the pod or whatever, but sometimes when I think about, representation, I think to myself, you want to see the people who really stand 10 toes down in who the fuck they are. You want to see the people who really own who and what they do fully and completely, because how are you supposed to convince a motherfucker that this is fine if people are like starting on that back foot, if people are already in a position, in a defense mode, in a receding, like, oh, don't look too closely, oh, I'm still not settled, which I think with the transformative element of gaining in fetishism is wild. Like we're packing pounds on the bodies, and you've got people who've packed on a fucking lot. And still, some of them who'll sit there and go, yeah, but I'm not confident. What do you mean? You gained 100 pounds of fat. You did all of this and you still haven't like worked through. You're not like processing do you know what I mean? What for you, like if you really plumb yourself here, what do you feel were the moments that really made you go, oh, I need to get right with myself. I really need to be at peace with who and what I am in the doing of this thing.
When I was younger, kind of before I started all of this, my mother, a heavier lady, um, definitely projected her own insecurities about she not being happy with herself onto me. And, I am 5'2" and 120 pounds at this point, and I am in band and marching all the time, and I'm just running around. And she kept saying, like, you're fat and nobody's gonna date you if you're fat. And I was just like, what the hell? What do you mean? What do you mean? And like that kind of just flipped something in me where it was like, I can be fat and I'm gonna date someone. And that's not gonna stop me. Like I can eat this chocolate cake and also kiss a guy afterwards. Like I'm not gonna kiss him with salad breath. Fuck no, I'm kissing him with chocolate cake breath. Like they're not exclusive. Something that a friend of mine told me the other day was I am nervous about being into this fetish because I've been into it since I was young, and I feel bad for fetishizing big women because I know that they don't like that. But what I replied with was like fetishizing someone is not the same as appreciating someone. Like you are able to have your preference and it not be uncomfortable. You are allowed to like what you like, and you shouldn't be ashamed of that, and you shouldn't be ashamed of how you want to look.
There's such a conversation around the way in which fat liberation does treat fat sexuality, and I personally don't think they've got a good handle on it. Because the concept of fetishization is very much a blanket statement. They're fetishizing, therefore it's bad. And I'm sat here as a gainer going, well, hold on a minute, honey. Like, actually, that's my through line to joy. So, like, it can't all be bad, right? Like, we've got to be willing to nut through this a little bit more rather than just blanket statement, you know. because it's unhelpful. And as your friend's expressing, they have a desire within them to engage in a certain way. And because of the way in which we have coded larger people to say, this is the way you push back, now he sat there going, well, I don't know how to do that without crossing boundaries. The question to me there is, how do I be successful? Because clearly this desire is not a bad thing because it's not innate in the destruction of a human life. So how do we make it an okay thing? And I think you've got to have more of that conversation. Like you just said, it's not about saying you have to have chocolate cake when you have sex, but it's saying that you are allowed to have chocolate cake with sex if that's what you want. And also don't do it if you don't want it. Like, let everybody express themselves in the way that they want to have the thing that they want to have. And maybe if we granted a little bit more space for everyone to just freely express that, there'd be a little less anxiety around all the little bits and pieces, you know?
It's also a matter of perspective. Like, if you are viewing what you're doing as fetishizing someone and not admiring someone, really, that is you putting the words of, like, I'm doing this bad thing, when you could just change the verbiage to be like a very positive thing. And that being said, how would a large lady know that you are ashamed to find her attractive? How do you think that would make her feel? She doesn't want you to be ashamed that you're into her body. Just accept it, appreciate it, and don't let societal norms crush your spirit.
Yeah, kind of the same narratives that we're all fighting under, right? Like, society said faggots were bad people for a very long time. And we had to go on marches and we had to put ourselves out there and say, no, that is not true. And we're just going to have to come back June every single year until you figure out that there's actually no problem here. And sometimes that takes time.
I was just going to say, I was going to ask what advice would you give to anyone considering, dating someone outside of the community? But I mean, we've already really talked through a ton of advice and a ton of just things that feel kind of common knowledge at this point. So, what are some things that people would not expect dating a feedee? Like, what are some things that people might not anticipate?
See, that's hard because I've not really experienced somebody being shocked by something besides maybe my current partner. His front car seat is getting a little small, it's getting a little tight. And we have been dating for not very long, and that's interesting. So we've had to be like, well, there's either going to be a car change or I'm going to be in the back seat because this is not viable anymore. And that's kind of like a whoa, I didn't even think that was gonna like come into play. Or like to civilians, like clothes getting tighter or portion sizes getting bigger, needing to buy more groceries. That's kind of like, whoa, what the hell? What's happening? And then it's like, that's life. That's what's happening. You gotta do that.
Isn't it interesting how many feeders don't seem to consider the cost of food? They're very welcome to, or they're very happy to shove it down your throat, but they're not always as interested in footing the bill.
Well, I had a conversation with a gainer friend who's been on the podcast, Fatty Boomba Tim, shout out. He's been over 500 pounds before, and he was sharing the experience once where, and he was lovely, a young encourager feeder type who wanted to take him on a date, and he did. He wanted to take him to a specific cafe restaurant, and I think he'd even worked out that there was banquette seating. So it was comfortable. It wasn't a tight booth. It was suitable and all of that. But because of the way that this town was laid out, he either had to park at the top of the hill or at the bottom of the hill, and the thing was in the middle. And so then you've got this issue of, well, now you're having to make this larger person. Because listen, I think most of us don't really struggle going downhill. It's the coming uphill that stresses a bitch out. And then there's that question of like, well, what do you do? How are you going to facilitate that? And I think he said the resolution was simply that they found somewhere else. But this is an example where I would say if you really want to try out that restaurant and you're dealing with someone who's at a size where mobility starts to become a question, you've got to look at facilitation in a way that goes above and beyond. You've got to drive them to that midpoint, allow them to get out and stand comfortably, let them know that you're going to go park the car and that you're going to make your way back. At that point, all you've got to think about is your own journey. You then have your meal. After that meal, go collect the car, bitch. Because now you got to come and collect your good SSBBW or BBHM. You've got to collect your guy, and you've got to take them, and you've got to facilitate that because, like, that's what it means to exist as a fat person. Is like you want life to feel normal because it is normal. You're just fat.
I remember one of the first dates that my current partner and I went on, not even dating at this point, just had a really nice weekend, and then he wanted to take me out to dinner. We parked the car, and I stupidly wear heels, and it's Atlanta, so you cannot park. You're gonna park a mile away and you were gonna hoof it. So we walked together to the restaurant, and then coming out of the restaurant, melting pot, by the way, uh, absolutely not. Not walking. I'm gonna stand right here, and then you are bringing the car. Like I made it a bit of the way, but there was this uphill bit, and I was just like, nah, I can't. I cannot do it.
And there's responsibility to yourself to also acknowledge, oh, I'm not the skinny person or the smaller person that I was who maybe could have done this once upon a time. I now occupy a different body with a different access. And so, actually, respect to myself means not stressing and pushing myself beyond what I know that I am capable of doing. A very simple example, we once had a guest on who expressed they were in the British equivalent of a Lowe's, like a hardware store. And they had to plan their journey around the store because obviously it's a giant warehouse style facility to get this stuff. And so he had to plan his route based on places where there was a little park bench display so that he could walk for a bit, do what he needed to do, go and sit, chill for five, be on his phone, up, move over to the next station, and keep it moving. Like, loving yourself doesn't just mean growing into a fatter body and saying, oh, I'm here now, let's have sex all the time, let's do all the fantasy. Loving yourself in a larger body means I have to take longer showers because I now have more surface area that I need to cover. Loving myself means I struggle to bend down to reach my toes to cut my toenails. So I'm going to budget now for a mani-pedi sesh once a month to go in and get them hooves buffed out. You know, loving yourself is sometimes so much more as a gainer and a feedie than just putting food in mouth. Sometimes it really is just about like, I want to be fat and also I want to be gorgeous. I want to feel great. I want to luxuriate in the experience. And I really hope that for people listening who maybe aren't the gainer or feedie, if you're an encourager, a feeder, someone who wants to facilitate that for someone else, I really hope you take away a sense of there are more things that you can do than just put food in the mouth. And in fact, let me put that to you, Sunday, because now we're talking around other things. For you, over the years, what for you has emerged as like a, oh, this is something my partner can do that just maybe it's not about food or the act of feeding itself, but as a big bitch, your partner does this for you, you go, oh, love, you feel so supported, you feel so affirmed by it. What is something that people can do for their partner?
Oh man, I have tons.
Please.
Um, Going to the store for me, I don't like stores. I don't want to walk around, and I'm not big enough for one of those little like rascal scooters. I would look silly. Uh, so you walk around and get my stuff from the store. And when I drop my phone, you pick it up for me. I can't bend down. And when I'm trying to put on lotion, this is now your job. That takes it out of me. I cannot like rub lotion on myself for 10 minutes and then also not be winded. It's like there's just so many little things that's like if it requires me to move more than 20 steps, there's a good chance I'm going to ask someone else to do it for me.
And can I just say that point about the lotion, what a fabulously simple way to lead into something a bit sexy because you're already there. You're already with a materia. You're already massaging and getting in there with the hands. Again, sometimes I feel because the fantasies outlined are so very specifically like feed me 8 pizzas and call me a good little piggy until I explode. You know, it's very that. Sometimes it feels like so we're starting at a 10. But something like that moment of lotion is such an easy way to start at a one and be like, ooh, let me gently migrate over to a certain space. And it doesn't have to be a genital space. It could be another space that you find erogenous, somewhere that you find particularly like, ooh, it does it for you. And like tune in with your partner. How are they reacting and responding? Are they leaning into it? Are they signaling to try somewhere else? Like there are so many beautiful ways to love on fat, to appreciate size that it just grants so much more opportunity for fun and for pleasure for both of you than just going, oh, straight into the pig trough of it all, you know?
I think in general, like acts of service for me personally is just a really big love language. Like if you are going to take the time out of your day to do something I could have done, like let me be lazy, let me be a queen, you know? Like I love that. I eat it up, but it's also hard to not feel bad. But this person is willing and wanting to do that for me, but it's also like, oh, I'm like all I do is sit here and eat all of your money, you know? Like it's interesting. It's hard to like shift out of that. So having a really supportive, understanding partner is critical to being able to fully slip into a comfortable state.
Mm.
I love that you mentioned that too, that idea of, oh God, like I'm just sitting here eating up all your money. Because I feel like deep down for most people, no matter how intensely they are into the fetish, it's been drilled into them by society that you have to be productive, that you have to be, this status quo of, of what we think of people who indulge in that kind of lifestyles. Like, what do they usually get called? Bums, layabouts, deadbeats, whatever. And it's I feel like that's something that hinders a lot of people from accessing relationships like this, is this idea
Mm.
of, well, I can't really become that because then I'm gonna look at myself like I'm not doing anything and not being anything. I'm gonna have other people looking at me
Mm.
that way.
That's a conversation about around accessibility as well, because for people with disabilities, they already occupy bodies that, gaining or not, don't allow them to access the world in much the same way as a typical person. They are as deserving of love as anyone else. But if you've got a partner who has MS, if you've got a partner who's a wheelchair user, the bitch can't walk. The bitch can't do what you might expect a, you know, typically able-bodied person to be able to do. And if you're going to choose to love this person, you've got to meet them where they're at. And in this example, fat people are no different. If you really want to have something with a larger person, you've got to be willing to eschew typical expectations of dating because they're occupying a body where that's just not going to work. And I want to zero in here because you mentioned love languages, and there is an episode we want to do. I call them love handle languages. It's the gainer fetus equivalent of the love languages. Can I share these with you here?
Absolutely.
Okay, so for anyone who's not aware, this is a very typical dating construct. They are called the five love languages, right? So there's quality time, which is intentional time spent together, physical touch, which is non-sexual touch, and physical proximity, words of affirmation, which are intentional words that are encouraging and fulfilling, acts of service, which Sunday you had mentioned, the actioning of chores and the meeting of various needs. And then you have gifts, the giving and receiving of thoughtful gifts. And I think each of those has a natural parallel that you could example within gaining and fetishism. So, for example, instead of quality time, you'd have facilitation, which to my mind is like the crafting of an environment suitable for growth. So, facilitation isn't necessarily just, oh, I'm going to buy all your groceries this week. Facilitation means, oh, I moved the refrigerator next to the couch. I made it so that actually there's a really convenient snack drawer like right in front of you that's a flip table. So you can just lean forward, grab it, and pull it back, and it's in your hands rather than you have to go up and get it from somewhere else, things like that. Instead of physical touch, I'd say body worship, and we were talking about this before, the sensual appreciation of a larger physical form. Again, doesn't necessarily have to be sexual, but just give this glorious fat the worship and praise it deserves. Instead of words of affirmation, I think poetry. And this is where you get that real, like the language of encouragement that, oh my God, you're doing so good. It's the way that really facilitates for the other person and drives them to want to eat more, to consume, to be fulfilled in their body, to know that they're achieving. That's poetry. Instead of acts of service, you've got crafting. And that's, I think, where you get things like, I'm actually going to procure you food, drink. I'm actually going to make a homemade meal. I'm going to order you junk food, and I'm going to be the one who goes to the door, delivers it to you, feeds it to you. I am making sure that you have everything you could possibly need to get bigger. And then finally, instead of gifts, I think that's patronage, where you have someone who facilitates with, I'm going to put money in your account. I am going to make it so that you have this in your hand and you don't have to be the one to make it happen. So that's my argument for the gain of love handle languages. People, let me know what you think. But Sunday, what do you think of those languages?
I think that is if you look at that as a list and be like, I need these in a relationship, you're gonna have a good relationship. If you can find somebody who can do all of those things, you've got it. Don't lose it.
Well, and to that point, the thing behind love languages is that each of us gives and receives languages differently to the other people around us. Some of us prioritize one more than they prioritize the other. All of that's okay. But ultimately, when you factor that into a relationship, the lesson is the person I am with most likely gives and receives love in a way that is different to me. And so my responsibility as a partner is to know my partner's love languages so I can give and receive from them exactly what they're giving. It trains you to be more open to the love that is there existing, and it makes you more conscious of what you need to do for them to make them feel more loved. So, with that in mind, think about that with a potential feedee partner. You might have an idea of what you want to see and experience in that. They might have a bit of a different idea. So, get to know that. What really matters to them. And then go ahead and fucking do that. Baby, that's a cheat sheet into winning town. They told you they liked this, so just do that. You know? Goddamn.
Absolutely. I think a lot of it is people aren't so receptive, and don't really see the importance of how somebody needs to be loved to be happy. Because if, say, I'm loving someone the way that I want to love them, that might not be meeting what they need. But I feel like I'm doing a good job because I would want to be loved like this. I think a lot of people aren't able to empathize and see that that isn't what everybody needs or wants, and that there's just so many different ways to approach things, I guess. I don't know if that makes sense, but
No, it definitely does. And to be fair, that brings me to a question I think that is good to ask here because, again, you've dated people inside of the community and outside. I'd like to know from you, what do you feel like is the biggest thing you have learned dating people inside of the space and the biggest thing you've learned dating people outside of it?
there's this big misconception that regular like civilian relationships are automatically doomed or like lesser. Like a non-fetus relationship can still be curious and supportive and compatible, and you just really have to be like honest about that. But for the other side, fetus relationships are not automatically abusive or shallow or only about food and bodies. Like there's just so much more that when you look beyond the surface, which you have to do with anything to understand it, but a lot of people won't give the time because it's weird. You just have to, like, everything is consent and communication. Everything is consent and communication. And if you aren't willing to listen and act on both of those, then you shouldn't be in a relationship, fetus or civilian.
Tim, I want to reference to you here because not to put your business out there, I feel like you're in a period of having a little bit more engagement and success, shall we say, with people inside of the space. Would you agree?
Mm, yeah, I mean, to a degree, sure.
Well, perhaps more success than you may have had historically.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
Reflecting on this, when you think about this maybe through a gay lens, as an older gay man, as a mixed race black man, do you feel like there is something like parallel here to what Sunday's been sharing? Or do you feel like the gayness community maybe does have something a little bit different that has to be factored in with all of this?
No, because again, it's just two humans need to learn how to communicate to each other better. That's kind of the moral of society. Like communication is clearly broken down. Um, I think that we could probably all be happy if we could just be honest with ourselves and each other. Um, I don't know how or when that will be achieved because it seems like this loneliness epidemic isn't going away and 75% of marriages still fail. So, and I'm not trying to be too pessimistic about it. I'm just Yeah, I know that, and I know it for myself. I know that there are times when I need to be more communicative. That's probably part of the reason why my latest relationship degraded. So I'm still a work in progress, still trying, and I think most people are. I was going to mention too that I kind of thought that another thing that sort of bars people from happiness is that I feel like there's a larger amount of people carrying around imposter syndrome than we initially realized. I feel like that's actually quite a common thing that people experience, both imposter syndrome and an inferiority complex, uh, which are most likely created by the environments that we grew up in one form or another. There was always something that was probably bearing down on us that made us feel that way. So,
Happens in gaining all the time. I have gained 100 pounds over the course of my journey, more probably when you factor in the yo-yoing. But I'm more than double my starting weight, and that is incredible. There are plenty of gainers who have not yet achieved that, and yet I'm 210 pounds. I know good and goddamn well I have those moments where I think about trying to connect with someone, and there's that thought of, what if I'm not big enough yet? What if I'm not there yet? What if and I'm not going to lie to you, I have heard from certain feeders, it's like, I don't want to feed a skinny boy. I want to feed a big boy because they're not looking to actually have you grow from thin to fat. They want to have the pleasure where the fat's at now. So
yeah,
like,
that does seem to be like I feel that too. That this idea of like because James and I are sort of in a midway point. We're not skinny, but we're not the biggest boys in the community. And both of us, it's been a slog to get this far. Like we just don't have bodies that have naturally put on weight.
yeah,
And we do
genetics are a
feel
bitch.
like, I mean, you just feel like, oh, I'm clearly not big enough. Like I'm just not like, because you also read through people's profiles when you become interested, and they're like, I'm into super chubs, I'm into the really fat boys, I'm into the like, I'm like, well, fuck me then. Like,
Mm.
Well, they won't because you're not the big
I
boy.
know.
Good, because we're not big. But you know what? I think this is the question that I'd like to begin to end out this conversation with, and I'd like to put this to you both. What is the biggest aspect of the dating self that you feel you're still working on when it comes especially to being a gainer slash feedee in a relationship? Because I'll tell you now, for me, it is that sense of self-assuredness about where I'm at right now. That is something I'm still working on, learning to look in the mirror and genuinely look at myself and go, you are big enough. And yes, we're going to get bigger, we're going to keep going, but you are fat right now. And that alone makes you enough. And it's okay. That's what I'm looking.
I think the word being fat being such a bad word outside of the community to people, like I will make jokes with my friends and talk like my big fat ass self doesn't want to go up those stairs, and they're like, "No, don't say that about yourself. You're beautiful." And that is something that has messed me up for a long time because, oh, I know I'm beautiful. I'm also fat. And those things don't like cancel each other out.
Yeah, they're
That's
not
not what
mutually
happens.
exclusive.
And like general public, like I am not the biggest of the big. I am 250 pounds and I am 5'2". So I am on the heavier side. But just the other day, like a week or two ago, we went to the pool in my neighborhood and people mooed at me. Like out loud, mooed at me. Like a group of people. It took everything in me to make
A
my
group of
boyfriend not go kill
adults.
them. Yes, a group of adults.
Oh my God.
This is the world we still live in, and like
Yeah.
having so much external conflict makes me internally conflict, but really just changing your perspective and changing those words to be more positive for yourself attracts better things for you.
Mm. You know, Trixie Mattel once said, being gay is not hard. Straight people make being gay hard. And I agree with that. I don't actually think it's that hard to be fat because the few concessions that fat people are asking for, like, hey, could we maybe come up with a standardized seat in most places that isn't actually that scrawny? Everyone would be way more comfortable in a bigger chair without arms. I promise you. Like We're
Movie
advocating
theaters
for
seem to have
ourselves.
caught on to that. That seems to be the only place where that's caught on is
Yes.
movie theaters. Now everybody wants to go to sleep in a movie theater because the thing reclines all the way. It's the size of a couch.
Yes.
It's
But you know what I mean? It's like we're asking for such little with intercession, but also those intercessions benefit everyone else as well. But I do think, as you say, it's the world around us that really tries to take that joy from us. And it really does take so much extra effort and energy in the day to maintain that peace.
I will be brutally honest. I'm working on being present because I'm trying so hard not to disassociate. Like there is, with my complicated history in love, and like I said, those insecurities and complexes that plague us all. I'm just trying to be present in the moment. That's what I'm struggling with. It's hard when you've had your heart broken a bunch of times and you just do feel very disillusioned with the world of dating and romance, and you just want to be like, fuck it. Like the next guy who's going to move in here is just going to deposit his shit and then disappear on me again. Like it's and it's difficult to come to combat that when, like, even when I'm on a date and in the back of my head it's just running like, okay, like, is this going anywhere? Does this have a viable future? Like, is he just gonna bum off of me? Is this somebody who's just gonna move in, like I said, just leave all of his shit in my house and then disappear on me one day? Like, yeah, so I'm working on that at the moment.
What I think is powerful about these statements is that clearly there is a spectrum of that experience. And between us, there's a spectrum of age, gender, race, and all of those factors that sometimes I think we in our own minds can get caught up and think, well, actually, because of all the ways in which I become me, that ties me up with my specific thing, and I have to think about the specific ways in which I get to have success and move forward. When actually, between all of us, hearing of one another, I think we're all resonating and going, oh, I remember that. Or, oh, I'm walking through that and I feel that and I see that. And so actually, there's probably a lot more commonality in our successes and also in our struggles as well. And I think there's something quite wonderful about that because it means that if we just endeavored to have a little bit more humanity and connection with one another, we would probably find a lot more community and a lot more ease of moving through these tensions, you know? And so, thinking of, as a way to wrap up today's episode, Sunday, I want to put it to you. We've talked around so many different facets, right? We've really, I think, plumbed your experiences with both the feedist side of things and the civilian side of things. We've talked about successes and losses and wants and fails and all of this stuff. What do you think is the takeaway you want listeners to have from today?
Love yourself and people will love you back. But if you stay online, hidden away, scared of what you want, you are not going to get any further. You just need to be okay. Just be okay. It's gonna be okay at the end of the day, whether you like fat women or whether you don't. Whether you want to be fat or whether you don't. It's okay. That's all I want people to know is that it is gonna be okay. You'll make it to tomorrow.
Everything is going to be okay, and we are going to make it to tomorrow. So, with that, Sunday, thank you for everything you've shared with us today, my love. This has been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me. It's honestly like this was therapeutic for me to talk about all this.
And you know what? If it was therapeutic for you, I think it's therapeutic for others. Sometimes I think it is truly like people just need to know that they are not alone in what they are thinking, feeling, and experiencing. So, genuinely, thank you for everything you have shared. Where can listeners find you online?
You can find me on Feabie. My username is Sundae, SUNDAE_Addams, ADDAMS. And the same username on FeedeeMedia is Sundae Addams. So type in a form of Sundae and Addams together and you'll find me.
Well, listen, y'all, that is a wrap for now here on Thicc Radio. Please remember to like and subscribe, rate us 5 stars, and leave us a good review. If you liked this episode, share it with your friends and encourage them to tune in. You can find me on Instagram and BlueSky at stannnum.
And you can find me on Instagram at thiccymouse and Grommr at Orpheus.
You can also find us on social media at Thicc Radio or visit our website at thiccradio.com.
Consider supporting the show by donating to our PayPal or by subscribing to our Patreon, where you can enjoy extra helpings, a behind the scenes conversation with this week's guest where nothing is off the table.
And if you send us a letter to thethiccradio@gmail.com, we might just read it on the show. That's all for now, so until next time. Bye, Fats.
Bye, Fats.
Bye, Fats!
Let's talk about it.
Thicc Radio is an independent production.
Artwork, media design, editing, and production by James Heinzen.
With original theme music by CYMK.
How do you feel?
I feel good. I think I did good.
You did great.